In a world where entertainment is viewed as mindless diversion, only good for momentary distraction, you are about to enter a new world, and you will never view entertainment in the same way again. This is Popcorn Theology.
Welcome, movie lovers and theology nerds, to Popcorn Theology, where we examine films for where they align with the greatest story and our greatest storyteller, discussing what to receive, reject, and redeem for common ground, fruitful conversation, and mindful movie consumption. Wow, that was fast. I'm James.
And I'm Miles, and we're looking at Zootopia 2, co-written and co-directed by Jared Bush and Byron Howard. Sorry, Byron. Starring Jennifer Goodwin as Judy Hopps, Jason Bateman as Nick Wilde, Ke Huy Quan as Gary DeSnake, and Andy Samberg as Pobert Linksley.
That's right. It's the movie that saved Hollywood at Christmas, I think, looking at the box office, and definitely worth reviewing since it's probably, I think this is going to break, I think this is still planning to top Avatar for its weekend opening. And I think it topped Lilo and Stitch, if I'm remembering. So I don't think anything's made more money yet than this. Avatar we'll have to see. So, but as far as Hollywood's dismal year, this has to feel like a little bit like a Christmas present. So something to put in their stocking after a pretty bad box office year. So, but several years after exposing a citywide conspiracy, wait a minute, is that right? I've seen different summaries. Some say it's a while later. Some said it was like supposed to be set a week later.
I don't know.
We're going to have to look that up later. Or you can tell us in the notes afterwards, fans.
Yeah.
But some indiscriminate time, many years in real time, maybe not so much in Zootopia time, officers Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde are now respected, well, the partners in the Zootopia Police Department. But as they investigate a new wave of crimes that threaten to divide Zootopia along old prejudices, when the clues point to the return of the snakes to Zootopia, tensions rise between the districts and between the partners, and they uncover a plot built on fear and misinformation. To save the city, then, they have to resolve some emotional issues with their partnership while working to uncover that scandal that cuts to the very origins of the city. And will they prove that trust and unity are stronger than division? Well, we'll get to spoilers here in a little bit. So, but speaking of spoiler-free things, let's talk about our spoiler-free thoughts and our popcorn ratings. So, Miles, first, I'd like to know where you put the first one first, but would you say the first and then second were stale, fresh, or buttered and salted?
Ooh, well, I'd say this one was not quite as good as the first one. They're both kind of fresh, maybe close to buttered and salted. I had a genuinely good over Thanksgiving. I went with my parents and my wife and my kid to see this movie, and it's actually been a while since I've been able to go to a theater with family.
So three generations.
Have a good time. 3 generations. It was fun, and this is a very, very fitting sequel to a pretty good movie. It didn't feel phoned in, even though it could have been. You know, could have just made a bunch of money because Zootopia 1 was good. The visuals were good. And really, my favorite moments, the star of this movie, was just all of the extra stuff, all of the puns and the side jokes, just everywhere. And I had just a good time watching this one with my family. What about you?
Well, yeah, I would say, I think the first one was buttered and salted. I think it's probably one of my favorite Disney films. And I think I know why when you mention animal puns and side jokes. I think in some ways, this is a Disney film that's a little more Looney Tunes than style, right? That'd be just fast.
Well, Lola Bunny, of course, really feels like her presence is in this movie.
Yeah,
Judy Hopps. Yeah.
I mean, you have these characters. It's very frenetic. It's not a musical, except for some musical cues and moments, which one of my funniest call outs, which I'll talk about later. Yeah. But so this one I thought was, I was just going to say fresh. I would actually say buttered. But not, I would say it's a notch down from buttered and salted. It's not quite the first one. I'd say, I think Inside Out and Inside Out 2 are probably closer in being an even level for me. But this was good. I think it had a bit of narrative retread, which is probably just my biggest gripe, but kids aren't probably going to be paying attention to that. It's understandable for a kid's movie. And sometimes lessons need to be learned more than once. So that's probably the adult in me objecting to what is probably a perfect kid sequel.
Yeah, because I will listen to a story that preaches with great power comes great responsibility every year. You can go ahead and reboot Spider-Man. I don't get tired of that. And so, especially for a kid's movie, you kind of go, yeah, it is what it is, and retreading the same ground It's like,
Sure.
what else would you expect? And it's actually quite good.
Yeah. So what about theology themes then? Would you so we have our popcorn. It's fresh or maybe even lightly buttered in James's opinion, but as we grab our soda for the theology section, was it diluted, carbonated, or is the cup runneth over on Zootopia 2?
Yeah, well, it's not totally running over for me, but Zootopia is especially the first one, well, the whole world is one of the best modern day parables I've seen, or fables. As it's really meant to connect with the nature of prejudice. And so I'd say this is thoroughly carbonated. There's enough to talk about. And if you keep thinking about Zootopia 1 and 2, you start to see things, and it's meant to challenge you by analogy to be a better person, whatever that may mean, according to the writers and directors. So the same basic themes of prejudice were there. Moving beyond them, that was good. This was actually just coming out of the last big movie I watched was Wicked, and there's some really interesting parallels between the way a society is dealing with prejudice and what makes a hero in those. And I'll tell you, I was much more satisfied with the choices of the heroes in this movie than I was with Wicked. In fact, this very much, many of the turns in this movie are what I was rooting for the heroes to do in Wicked. And so, yeah, it's good. A classic story about looking below the surface, examining your own assumptions, being aware of the way in which our comforts and desires lead us into self-deception, whether through business, politics, or in partnerships. And then, I think this movie highlights those problems pretty well. It was a little bit harder for me to digest what their lesson was in the movie outside of general anti-prejudices and stereotypes. So I hope to dig in there a little bit more. Maybe you'll help me out with that one. What did you think about on the theology side?
Well, that's right. I'd say it's carbonated. I wouldn't say it was running over at all. The basic premises you mentioned from the first one, I might have leaned a little more that way. But even so, I think that it is a little more, even to remind the Looney Tunes vibe that I was alluding to earlier. I think it's playing with points and not necessarily trying to preach one. And that's actually good. And so it had some repeat of the original theme, but some new themes to explore with a couple character dynamics I'm excited to talk about. So carbonated, yes, but yeah, definitely excited to get into this a little bit more and we can talk spoilers. But before we do that, I do want to mention that this episode of Popcorn Theology is brought to you by B Claws Charity, an organization known for their unique approach to gift giving. This charity partners with local artisans and craftsmen to create a one-of-a-kind, personalized gift for children in need. B Claws Charity also believes that through the gift of creation, every child can feel seen, valued, and celebrated. So please visit their website at bclawscharity.com. That's B, Claus is in Santa Claus, no E at the end. It's not the Tim Allen movie. bclawscharity.com to donate. Donations are processed through Canada Helps, an organization that has very, very low fees, allowing your donation to go as far as possible. Great for the holiday season, obviously. So help share the gift of creation with a child in need this Christmas at bclawscharity.com.
Yeah, those guys are great, and with the pun names, it kind of fits really well into Zootopia with Paubert, Judy Hopps, Nick Wilde, but B Claws Charity. I actually got to apologize. I said Be the Claws for last time I read it. It's just because I get a little nervous when I read the ads sometimes. But in terms of support, as a podcast. Please, as listeners, if you like what you're hearing, if you want to further this kind of practice of thoughtful engagement from a Christian perspective, like, share, subscribe any of our clips and videos, and leaving a rate or review will bump us up in the algorithm. And if you really want to become a part of our narrative fighting force, for just a few dollars a month, you could become one of our patron saints. You could help steer the episode toward a movie that you think we should cover and get to interact with us a little bit more. This episode might come out just a little bit late for Christmas gifts, but I don't think anybody, any time of the year, would be upset with a shirt that reminds you that you are not a mindless consumer, or a hat, or a towel. That's the backdrop for Eric when he records his podcast. So yeah, any of those ways, dive in and support, become part of Popcorn Theology.
That's right. So while you're subscribing to us on YouTube and doing all those other things, we'll run some ads and be back, drop the spoilers, and get into the deep stuff of Zootopia 2. Cinemagogue, The Marvelous Era. James Harleman here, the cinema guy, announcing the sequel to my first book on film and faith. Let's face it, entertainment has changed dramatically since the first book published in 2012, and comic book characters and franchises are everywhere. So I decided to set my sights on superheroes and examine the evolution of Hollywood in this follow-up to the first Cinemagogue book. For example, what does Loki tell us about culture's view of God? Why does the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Infinity Saga continually align with biblical themes? In the Marvelous era, I review each film and show not only how the individual movies express gospel parallels, but each phase essentially reveals a multi-point sermon. I also explore DC, Star Wars, the Monsterverse, and more. Without compromising scriptural truth, we can sift these stories and discover how we might reject, receive, and redeem ideas for personal reflection and Christian conversation. Also, has Hollywood's messaging gotten worse? The book explores ways these marvelous mythologies correspond with conversion, Christian living, church history, and Reformation, but I do also highlight what has been the entertainment industry's darker, indoctrinating decade, as well as toxic fandom and the dangers of immersion in pop culture that just might drown us spiritually if we're not careful. So suit up, assemble, and join me on a journey to the Infinity Saga and beyond. Cinemagogue, the Marvel Us Era. Now available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle editions.
Hey, this is David, and if you're listening to Popcorn Theology, it's probably because you're interested in theology or movies, or best of all, both. And that means that you're our kind of people, sharing common interests with our listeners and viewers as well. So why not partner with us and advertise your business or ministry right here on Popcorn Theology? We're looking for great, like-minded sponsors and offer reasonable rates with a variety of formats to get your message out. Remember, our fans aren't mindless consumers, so they'll give you thoughtful consideration. That's a big part of what we're all about here. So for more information on advertising with us, contact feedback@popcorntheology.com.
And we're back. Spoiler warning has been dropped. We're going to dig deeper into Zootopia 2, pop some popcorn as we do share some popcorn thoughts. And as that popcorn's getting ready here, let's discuss, I wanted to hit the franchise as a whole first in the first film, because I know you got a chance to listen to it. I did too. Very early episode of Popcorn Theology, episode 68. We just actually dropped it on the YouTube channel as well. Richard and David, the old school hosts, talked about this and discussed the original theme. I think most of the time discussing the original thing, as they talked about it, was kind of this idea of anyone can be anything or everyone can be everything, and that application. What do you think of the episode and the theme? Do you think they discussed it pretty thoroughly? So
I think they nailed it. They actually helped me re-solidify the view. I shouldn't be surprised, because they were really good hosts, that they summarized the movie just like it was like a week or so after they had seen the movie, just very well. And they had a kind of a sober assessment of it, because that movie came out in a very heated time during race relations and everything. And people would have kind of, I don't know, thoughtless takes on the movie, but they were very thoughtful, just talking about, in one word, it's about prejudice, why we become, or in one sentence, prejudice, why we're prejudiced, and kind of what we can do about it. And so, yeah, it was nice to go back and listen to that episode again. It's a good listen if you want to focus on Zootopia 1.
Yeah, I would have loved to get into it with them a little bit, just because, you always think about, we rewatched it again recently, and at the time it came out, it wasn't even just race issues. Of course, people try to, it's just like the X-Men. You try to take a point that is made in a film that sort of has a timeless application of prejudice, but then you can sort of bring it to whatever is the topic du jour of the decade, which may or may not be an accurate application. Yeah. And I found it funny rewatching the first movie, because even if people walk away with anyone can be anything, it's like, well, wait a minute. By the end of the film, it's clear, like, Judy can be a police officer, but a rabbit cannot do the exact same things as a giant ox or a fox. Yeah. And even the whole character pretend, this character's decided they're an elephant, but you're laughing at it because it's obviously not true. And in fact, it was a ruse of the con artist. So I think within the narrative, it has some self-clarifying aspects of, okay, you can, I think that, as Richard and David pointed out, try everything, but ultimately we're not necessarily. And from an aspirational point of jobs, or if you're being held down for an aspect of your identity, it's like, well, okay, there's great application there, but obviously not anyone. Like, I'm never gonna play basketball. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, one thing that Zootopia really did have on Zootopia 2 is that song "Try Everything" is really catchy. Yeah, but I go around my house singing to my son, "Oh, try a few things, try some things. Don't be afraid to trying everything.
But
No.
everybody knows that's not. It's just like,
No.
I'll try being a serial killer. Oh no, that's not okay. Obviously,
No,
we
but
all
you
know
take
the
it.
applications don't work. Yeah,
and it's actually really it's pretty good advice. It's about like dusting yourself off after trying to do something that you've never done before,
yeah.
and believing that just because it hasn't been done before, you can do it. And I was like, that okay, I can jive with that. Go for it. Gazelle Shakira, and so
That's right.
Yeah,
And the
it's
tiger dancers, which are hilarious, even if maybe there's some.
a little risque. Yeah. But it's in terms of receive, reject, redeem, there's plenty to redeem with that, where you go,
Yeah,
if understood with
absolutely.
just a little bit of a guardrail, it's good. Try some things.
Yep. Yeah. Well, this movie took everything kind of to a next level. I was actually seeing amongst the trivia. He said, this is the biggest film ever made in the history of Disney animation. We've got one shot, he says, that features 50,000 animals on the screen at the same time.
Wow.
I'm going to have to watch it again to see if I can figure out where that is. I want to see it again, actually, because another aspect of this being like a Looney Tunes is it seems like between the puns, visual and verbal, it's like you cannot process everything happening all at once. So this is one of those movies that I hope parents, I don't think you'll feel as bad rewatching it if kids want to watch it every day for like a month, because I think you could catch something. You could probably watch it 30 times and see something new.
Yeah, I mean that's why I thought this movie was fresh, was because I wanted to pause it all over the place. Like when people are looking at TV screens and stuff, all the news banners and everything. So like the standout moments for me was just that all of that extra stuff. Like I loved the porcupine spike strip with the cops where he rolls across it, and the Coca-Cola bears out, all those old Coca-Cola commercials. And then YouTube spelled EWE.
Oh yeah.
And then I think they're running through, and there's a lion who's cooking in that fine restaurant, and they pull his hat off, and it's a ratatouille situation.
Yeah, I did catch that nod. That was hilarious.
There was just so much of that was just very, very fun. Or like when Nick Wilde is getting reamed by his boss, Chief Bogo, I think it is, and Nick's going like, "Look, jokes are a classical defense mechanism for somebody with a traumatic childhood." And the chief says, "Would you like a traumatic adult head?" It's like, that's a great threat. And, like you're fitting some of the good genres. I guess, like you were saying, the Looney Tunes style plus cop, a tough as nails captain telling them, "I'm telling you, don't pursue this case. Stick to your desk," all that kind of stuff. It's good popcorn stuff. And then, of course, as a modern fable of prejudice, it does pretty well. And you see that, like in the first movie, Nick and Judy are overcoming stereotypes about themselves and about others. And then in this movie, it's kind of going forward as they've now been telling themselves a story in their own heart for a long time based on those narratives. And now that they're overcoming those prejudices, they have to address that together as a partnership. And so it's like, that's pretty cool. It's a pretty good development, although it was kind of hard for me to catch in the midst of all the action. And then what I was really interested from in the trailers was, okay, there's this rumor that snakes are coming in.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, clearly this is an opportunity to talk about illegal immigration and all of these issues coming up. It's like people, because outside of Zootopia, like, okay, everybody, you have predator and prey together, but no snakes are allowed in this city. That's a gap. What do we do about that? But I expected a really ham-fisted, heavy-handed immigration agenda, but it just didn't feel too preachy. It was a good exploration, and Gary is delightful.
I'm going to expect, if I think about it, perhaps the length of production on some of these animated films is years and years. So the script may have predated some of the hot the heat about that, which plays in its favor, because I get how you could make it. I didn't even think about that until I was reading your notes, to be honest.
Really?
Like that.
Yeah.
Just because the narrative then and the mystery really doesn't go there either. It's not as if you can't tie. It's not as if other immigrants were the original founder. Like it just, you can't really make it too. It's not on the nose, on the snake nose, as far as the reptile thing. It also, I almost was filling a plot hole because they just didn't really have reptiles in the first movie. So it's like, okay, well, there you go. So
just retcon.
So I could, again, this is one of those, even the first film too, you can take a lot of the ideas and you can apply them to your pet pet peeve or pet political activist notion, but it's because they're broad enough that they can be used by parents to teach kids a lot of things, good things or bad things. So yeah. So it's just, these are kind of a perfect redeem movies. Mm-hmm. They have, which we'll get into some of our themes later, but they just have redeem quality written all over them. They're not specific enough that you have to just they're so non-specific. There's not a lot of reject. There's not a lot of reject or receive. It's all kind of redeem material. A lot more anyway.
But it's not empty, because there's plenty of choices but you can kind of plug and swap ideas around these characters because they're really fit for parables, being different kind of animals. It just makes it kind of fun for these kind of conversations.
Yeah.
And so not clearly a receive, not clearly a reject on most of their relationships.
Speaking of fun, though, I should mention my popcorn thoughts, too, which first and foremost, I would probably say anytime Mayor Winddancer is on the screen, because I love me some Patrick Warburton. So,
well, you know what's funny about that is that I just, because I had the political hat on, because Zootopia brings all those things in. I was like, here you have an actor turned political leader with this golden hair that he's always flipping around and becomes the focus. And I was like, I thought, boy, is this guy going to be a Trump parallel? You know, what are we going to see? And some ways, maybe. But he was pretty delightful in this movie.
If Trump sort of crossbred with Fabio, the old model. There you go.
Trumpio, yeah.
Trumpio.
But just, a guy who's been placed, he's a know-nothing, vain TV star, and that's why people voted for him. But he's really a tool of nefarious forces behind Zootopia.
Yeah,
it's like, I could see why Hollywood would be right in that parallel. Maybe the golden hair is kind of what it did for me, but it wasn't obvious to me, and I kind of dropped that idea. It was just
and then not painted as a pure villain either. So
he repents.
Yeah. We'll get into that later. Probably the moment my wife and I laughed, and I think because there was more kids in the theater than adults, we were like the loudest laughing, though, was when they come up on the hedge maze and they have the Shining music cue. It's like bum bum bum. And it's just we laughed out loud. It's got
I laughed.
I'm not sure who else is getting it.
My wife turned to me like, "Why is that funny?" I was like, "Trust me, it's funny. It's very funny."
Then the hippos on the dock when things like spill over and they're like, they had a little hungry hippos call out.
Yeah.
My wife's favorite thing in the movie was the two goats being named, as a cheese lover, the fact that the two goats were named Boucheron and Chèvre.
That one went over my head. That's good.
That's goat cheese right there, baby. Or the koala that was named Robert Furwin.
Yes.
Instead of Irwin.
That was actually played by Robert Irwin.
Yeah. Well, so like Michael J. the Fox was Michael
really?
J. Fox. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just fun. That's fun.
Oh, yeah. And I love Jason Bateman, right? The Nick Wilde character is just playing to his strengths. And, second best Fox to Robin Hood. I'm contractually by marriage obligated to say second to Disney's Robin Hood.
Yeah.
But just a great vibe. Like his laid back character, just sort of the way he sort of takes the world. If you get, it almost feels like a live action, an animated Bill Murray to some ways for me. So
yeah, I mean his scheme in the first movie with the ice cream pops, or what is it, the fruit pops, is so good.
Yeah,
it's the little baby with the deep voice. I love that stuff.
Yeah, but then you put him in a responsibility role, and there's just that awkwardness that good comedians know how to play with.
Mm-hmm.
But that's enough of popcorn. I'm sure everybody who's watched the movie can tell us their favorite bits in the comments and sections and other things too. But we should probably get into a little soda fountain of theology. We should pour that.
Ooh.
And 20 minutes in, we're looking pretty good. So I don't want to keep people here all day with the podcast.
Oh, but we're about to get serious.
That's right. All right. Well, take it away, man. So what was your first thought coming, or your biggest thought coming out of Zootopia?
So just reflecting on Zootopia in general, the world that they've built. Yep. And as it's been the Christmas season and I've been studying some of these prophecies, I'm going to argue that the Bible prophesies the Zootopia experience.
Really?
So you think, O come Emmanuel, O come O rod of Jesse, the branch of Jesse. In Isaiah 11, there's this prophecy in the midst of all this judgment that there would be a righteous king from the line of David who would save the world and bring peace among everyone, including the animals. Right? The wolf will lie down with the lamb. And I was thinking, well, what's the picture of Zootopia? And it's amazing. Coincidence, but what this movie hopes for, what Zootopia hopes for, the absence of conflict, is what's being communicated in all throughout Isaiah 11 in this classic Christmas prediction of Jesus. And so it's like, I might make an argument, we love to point out movies that might possibly be undercover Christmas movies. The idea of Zootopia, of animals living together in harmony, is not even foreign to Scripture. As you have Zootopia as a parable for race and class and interpersonal conflicts, and how do we get through those? Isaiah 11, the first 2 verses are, we're going to have a king from the line of David, and he's going to come. And this is what he's going to be like, verses 3 and 4. His delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. He shall not judge by what his eyes see, or decide disputes by what his ears hear. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor and decide equity for the meek of the earth. So what's the problem in Zootopia? Looking at people's differences and prejudices and snap judgments, even based on a bad experience with an individual now put to the group, like in the first movie with the foxes. He's going to look beyond the surface, and he's going to rule justly. And then what's going to happen in the world? A few verses later, in verses 6 through 8, it says, the wolf shall lie down with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the lion and the fatted calf together, and a little child shall lead them. Cow and bear shall graze, their young shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like an axe. Now that's Zootopia 1. Zootopia 2 is verse 8. The nursing child shall play over the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child shall put his hand in the adder's den.
Or the pit viper.
Peace on earth, goodwill toward men, all that Christmas hope stuff. That's the hope for what the Messianic king would bring. And so, biblically, Zootopia is kind of in the minds of the prophets when God is pointing to them to what he's bringing. Jesus and the kingdom of God is the fulfillment of the hope of Zootopia. And we experience this in the already but not yet sense. Like as the big conflict in the early church was Jews and Gentiles fellowshipping together. What do we eat? What do we sing? How do we relate to one another? And like the book of Ephesians says, I took the 2 people and made them one, put them into one family, put them into one city. And so it just made me kind of raise a question. Maybe we could discuss this a little bit of just how does the Bible's prescription for how Zootopia is achieved compared to how the movie says this stuff is achieved. And the movie just kind of assumes peace, but the argument that's implicit is good enough technology and good social policies will create peace on earth and goodwill toward men. If people will just try everything.
Good old, not human striving, but good old mammalian striving, I think.
Mammalian striving? Yeah. And so you have the comparison here. This movie it speaks to the hope that the Messianic hope tapped into, but it's like, how do you think we get there? And then at the end of this movie, it's hard to figure out exactly what the message was, but it narrates a lesson for us. So Nick says this is in the end of the movie. He says, there's a lot of different animals out there, and sometimes we start to look at all the little reasons that we're not the same, and it makes us worry. Maybe if we just talk to each other, if we just try to understand one another, we would see that our differences don't really make any difference at all. Maybe we even see that what makes me, me, and you can make us even stronger. The idea is, if we just have a little more understanding, then that can preserve or achieve Zootopia. And the Bible's view on that is a little more pessimistic, I think.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, yes and no. It's kind of, thinking about how things apply and overlap with current events in the decade that a film comes out. It's like, wait a minute. Maybe if we just talk to each other, that sounds like
That's
someone
good.
else's credo this year who was killed.
Yeah.
Not that I ever think anyone would have associated Nick Wilde and Charlie Kirk, but
Yeah.
So, if we could actually just create space for conversations, even where we agree to disagree or agree that we are different, right? That's because at the end of the day, even the Zootopia animals, it's like, okay, you're right. A rabbit is never going to have everything in common with the fox. and there's going to be differences. There's going to be not places of disagreement, but the ability to have conversations and at least understand each other. There is some hope, and I think it has proven itself. This is where I think sometimes we can be pessimistic Christians with our theology and forget. Like if you look at 2,000 years, speaking since Christmas, 2,000 years since Christmas, Western civilization has reshaped aspects of the world in ways we'd like to see, like things that we do see in Zootopia. Like even the
basic assumption that everybody, whether they're big or strong, rich or poor, powerful or weak, is valuable and has a voice and actually should be allowed to try everything. That is a Christian idea. The Hindu idea is, oh, you're weak and poor. You must have really screwed up in your last life because you deserve this.
Yeah. And the reason I will be good for you is it improves my karma, right?
It's not actually love for you. It's just so that I can make a step up in the next life and maybe escape this world. And the Christians go, no, image bearer of God.
Yeah. So I would argue it like on one level, there is there's a measure of credence we have to give a statement like this if we put it in the guise of Christianity and its influence on Western civilization. But we do know that the promise falls short of that. We do know that the best, like we might not get full Tower of Babel here and just fall apart, but it will never be perfect. We'll never actually have anything resembling complete or utter peace. I was actually just preaching a sermon there's in all of human recorded history, there's never been a year without a war where there wasn't warfare somewhere. Like you can't. So you say that peace will never come, but there is a measure of civility we can create, even with those who don't believe in Jesus. There is an element of civilization and actually help with the Holy Spirit's help. Right, there's even a restraint of the evil that could be happening. So,
and the whole the Christmas idea is that God is coming to humbly and gently start a revolution in guerrilla warfare style, a peace revelation from heart to heart to heart, that you will start having Zootopia in your heart toward your enemies, toward the people who are different than you because of Jesus. And a movie like this might make me ask, okay, if the king, the rod of Jesse, is going to bring this peace between natural enemies, and I claim to follow that king, to pray for his will on earth as it is in heaven, how am I working to resolve the conflict that comes from my differences with other people? Like, that's the challenge, is that this is a point that we can redeem as Christians, is that it should challenge us, especially based on the fact that we claim to live as a citizen of heaven, where the wolf and the sheep lie down together.
Yeah, and are we ambassadors or not? Right?
Are we ambassadors or not? And how are we doing? How's our online discourse as Christian going? Is it inflaming or is it peace bringing? Even if we're bringing truth that people may not like, those kind of things is the challenge here. Is look at this lofty vision of what the Messiah will bring. And we say that he's come, even though we're looking forward to his second coming. But if his kingdom resides between you and me as Christians, how are we doing? As Zootopia was prophesied 700 years before Christ. So I thought that was just kind of a fun thing.
Well, also, as much as that point was serious, you also mentioned guerrilla warfare. It's like, I actually now want to see a pun like Zootopia 3 has to have guerrilla warfare with actual gorillas.
Yes. So much. How much fun must it have been to throw in 1,000 puns in the background of this movie? It's just great.
Oh my gosh, man. So that's the overarching piece, and it kind of fits the whole deal. Was there other things you wanted to talk about, or should I interject some personal stuff?
That was kind of just the world of Zootopia. I didn't even have a huge point of that, but just, wow, the Utopia part is the type of thing that we hope for. The Bible says the Messiah will bring. So you could almost, if you want to do an apologetic for people, you could say, you know how you're hoping that all natural enemies could dwell together in a city? That's what the end of the Bible is about. That's in the midst of our differences, the rod of Jesse will come and bring peace between natural enemies. And Zootopia is this little slice of Hollywood picture of what the kingdom of God is supposed to look like. So it should be a challenge and a hope for all of us. But yes, I'll cede the floor to you. What did you see theologically?
Well, I before we get there, I'll piggyback on what you're saying there, just because I do think, and we can't discuss this in depth, but this is to some, when you ask that, like, what are our assumptions from this movie about Zootopia now or Utopia now? And it's very easy to be pessimistic and maybe a little bit like Nick Wilde. It's like, well, whatever, nothing we're going to do is ever going to make any difference. And others, well, we are called to, as his ambassadors, we're supposed to be striving for a foretaste of the kingdom, a now and not yet scenario.
Yeah.
And this is where I actually do think, murky waters here, eschatology plays a part in this.
Yep.
Like I think, and dare I will say,
are you about to get us canceled on Christian?
That's right. I'm totally going to get us canceled. If you're just waiting to get out of here because it's like going to heck in a handbasket, then you are really, how does that affect your desire to strive for it now? Like and it doesn't even matter. I think that whereas you swing over to like some of the post-millennial view, where the post-millennial view would actually say Christians are by and large going to largely Christianize the world before Christ's return. So those would be a chunk of Christians, our brothers and sisters, who believe that working with here will achieve a high degree of that before Christ's actual and physical return.
You say, how do you deal with all the references to Jesus sitting on his throne now, which no Christian would disagree with, ruling and reigning until his enemies like conflict in general and the sin in our own heart will be made his footstool. And so you see, Zootopia is almost like a piece of the kingdom of God advancing in the world, but has yet to include reptiles.
Yeah.
And how do we do that? And additionally, the heroes of the story have to root out the lie, because there's been people who have been scapegoating the snakes, which we'll talk about later.
Reptiles or Gentiles?
Wow, touche.
Right, there's all sorts of so many things. But I think it's important for Christians to believe, and this again, even Nick Wilde talking about, we look at little reasons we're not the same. We ought to have the same mindset whether we are pre-mill, post-mill, mill, or pan-mill. We should be striving for moments and foretastes of the kingdom here and creating communities, not just with our church, but even how much you sort of work through politics is a whole other conversation, but should be striving to give people around us a foretaste of it here so they want to be a part of the forever with our King and our God, right? There shouldn't be I think we can lean into that Nick view in this movie where he's just kind of like, whatever, it's not even worth bothering. And he certainly says not worth dying for. It's like, we've had people throughout history, martyrs for the faith, desperate to get this message out to others, striving as if they're going to Christianize the world.
Yeah.
And so again, ultimately our eschatological view shouldn't matter. We should be striving with the right amount.
I'm incentivized a little more. It's so funny that we started talking about eschatology through Zootopia, but that's what messianic hope does. And what utopias make you think. And what is your version of utopia? And how does it line up with God's promise of restoration in the future? And like Judy, we need to have courage to do something about it when there's something wrong between now and then, if we claim to be currently in the kingdom of God and agents of it.
Yeah.
So it's like,
amen to that.
So you make me want to get up and go love a neighbor. Let's go love a neighbor right now.
That's right. And for the right reasons, right? Because there are, again, this is where I've picked on Nick as we're talking about eschatology, and that's one of my issues. The main thing that stood out to me was that Judy and Nick are both flawed. And if I had to title it something, I'd say it's sort of a study of someone with something to prove versus people needing to actually have something to die for. And so we see Judy, to me, is kind of like the cage phase Christian.
Okay.
And I know sometimes that gets used for specific things like the cage phase Calvinist or the cage. I'd say anybody who's sort of the cage phase Christian who's just got excited, they've read like 1,000 books in the first month they became a Christian. And now they've got a lot of excitement, but a lot of times the flaw we find is that those Christians have something to prove. They're trying to prove themselves, maybe out of the fact that they felt like they've wasted time before they became a Christian, whatever the motivation is. Or maybe they've still got just some inherent pride. It's like, I'm a Christian now. I've got this knowledge now. I'm going to go save the world all by myself. It's like, okay, wait a minute, bro. Wait a minute, sister.
Yeah.
Right? There's too much of herself in it at the beginning of the movie, and her own pride and her self-worth wrapped up in doing what may actually be the right thing, but for the wrong reasons.
Well, and as evidenced by the fact that she can't accept help.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you want the right things done, you don't care who does them. But she, and so, doing the right things for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. And Nick is still jaded and cynical about the world, and he doesn't understand really the point of being heroic. At the end of the day, he still kind of wants to save his own skin or the skin of somebody like, oh, come on, buddy, let's get out of here. This isn't worth it anymore. And they're both self-focused and in the opposite, in different directions. And like actual love and care have to take precedence. And that's why we say like Nick stays and he risks his life out of love. Is like, he's doing it for Judy. I'm doing it for you. And it's not quite spelled out quite as explicitly for her, but I think when she realized what's motivating him, she seems to refocus to be doing things for the right reasons too. There's that whole moment where she says, Nick, we have to solve the case. He says, I don't care about the case. He says, Judy, it's not worth dying for. And she says, the world will never be a better place if no one is brave enough to do the right thing. And his pushback then is that the world is what it is, carrots. And sometimes being a hero won't make a difference. He reminds me of Nick Fury when he tells Captain America,
yeah,
S.H.I.E.L.D. takes the world as it is,
yeah,
not as we'd like it to be. It's almost a Steve Rogers, Nick Fury moment here.
Yeah.
You've got the idealist and you've got the cynic. And Judy's like, at that point, she's like, okay, I think maybe we are very different. Like this almost breaks them. But I think, again, even to the quote you mentioned earlier, where he's like, if we talk more, we'll understand we're not that different. Because I would posit, biblically, the non-Christian altruist, I'll put that in quotes, is just as screwed up as the hedonist.
Right? Everything's tainted.
Right.
I remember in philosophy classes, somebody saying, nobody's good. Why do you do the good things? Does it make you feel good? You're just doing it to feel good. A nice little cynic there. And that's when you start drifting into virtue ethics. It's like, no, actually good is when you become the type of person that wills the good. And it's okay. But it just, what are you in it for? And there's just always, I'm sure you get this, even if I preach a really good sermon and I was writing it in love for my people, I know that they need this word from the Lord. When they go, or nod their head, man, I love that feeling. And
That's right.
There's so much of it is ego. And I go, Lord,
that's right.
I'm sorry.
That's right. And so that's why I even say like the non-Christian altruist, right? Like if you don't know Christ, if you don't understand who you are as made an image bearer of God, if you're not doing it ultimately for God's glory, well, then you're doing it for your own glory. Or at best, maybe you're doing it for humanity's glory, but that's just a Tower of Babel. You're worshiping self as in species. You're still not focused on, so even like helping the poor can be done out of a worshiping humanity motivation. So it's still, as you tainted, the perfect word, you used that earlier. And so a perfect illustration then of Judy and Nick and how they're both flawed. They're both acting out of pride. It's obvious for her. Because I think about it, when they go to the gala, if she had just told Bogo, if she just told her boss, things might have gone very differently. They might have been able to work things out, and it might have got solved more simply. You never know. Like she couldn't trust. She's like, no, we need this collar. We need this win. We have to do it. The two of us.
Well, a lot of it is the pressure of being the first bunny in the police force, right? And the expectations. So it's still kind of stereotypes, but it's the pressure that she hasn't let go of. She's still stereotyping herself, and living under that. I thought this movie was going to go, they have to go on the run and she has to learn from Nick because they now have to act like crooks. And there was a little bit of that, but that wasn't the core lesson of the movie. But that's what I thought the theme was going to be, was learning from one another. But it wasn't quite that. And it's
because Nick's still got a lot of Han Solo in him. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, he's kind of like, well, peace out, kid. Well,
like, when they break out of jail and there's 200 criminals out, and he doesn't care. No, you should care. You just let 200 criminals out of the jail,
Yeah.
even though, going outside the law was right for you guys in that instance.
Yeah. So there's a lot of great learning points, especially for parents teaching their kids, that I don't want people to miss. And that's where you go right to your scripture, Old Testament and New. Proverbs 19:2 says, desire without knowledge is not good, and the one who moves too hurriedly misses the way. That's like perfect for Judy, right?
Yeah.
At first, she has a desire, but even at this, like, she doesn't have all the evidence and proof and doesn't even understand the problem they're getting into. So desire without knowledge, not good. She has desire. The desire is not even wicked.
No,
Like,
she's
she has a
good.
desire to help. But she also, perfect for a rabbit, moves too hurriedly, and kind of, so she screws things up. And same thing too, like, even once you have knowledge, then 1 Corinthians 8, knowledge puffs up, but love builds up.
Yeah.
Judy's smart, but she's still, as we've mentioned, she's still being motivated by a mixture of things, and a lot of them aren't the right motivating factors, and they compromise what's going on. Both of them basically don't listen to their boss. Both of them think the therapy class is a dumb idea. And that's just Proverbs 1:7, right? This movie doesn't teach us the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. But the caveat after that is fools despise wisdom and instruction.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I don't want to listen to my boss. I don't want to listen to my peers. It's a very, very modern Hollywood. Usually it's the other way around, right?
Yeah.
The boss is completely inept and dumb. And I say, okay, here they lack information, and here everybody turns out wrong. But that doesn't mean, especially like, yeah, they needed some counseling. They needed some things
that's
to
one
work
of those,
on each other.
and that'll preach for a lot of Christians. A lot of Christians are,
Yeah.
well, okay, if I have Jesus, I don't need counseling. And
Yeah.
sometimes you really do. I don't think it's the end all be all. And a lot of counseling will end up affirming you no matter what you view. But biblical counseling, which helps people understand where they are, what their motivations are, and how it aligns with Scripture. That's a good idea.
That is a bigger debate that's worth saying people should look into. Is when we say therapy or we say counseling, we're not necessarily saying modern 21st century psychological means and methods.
All those
even with some I think well-intentioned, like biblical counsel is what we're talking about. Biblical wisdom being applied by biblical sources. It doesn't always have to be a pastor. It doesn't even have to be a professional. It can be just receiving the counsel of a friend or an older person, an elder in age or church.
Well, like I know
office.
it's a different movie, but I love the scene in Frozen when I think it's Kristoff turns to Anna and says, "You're going to marry somebody you just met?" Like, and I was like, how cool is that in the middle of a Disney movie? I mean, it ended up being a large part of the plot, but just like, fools despise wisdom and instruction. And and she was so insecure, which turned into this strange overconfidence and lack of listening.
Yeah.
And,
whether you think you can, whether you want to save your own skin and think you're more important than anybody else in that way. And that's kind of some of what Nick kind of has been in his personality for years, obviously, and hasn't quite still worked its way out in this movie. Or whether you just think more highly of yourself because you think you can save the world, like Judy, by yourself or just with your partner. Right? It's like Romans 12. It's like, we're not supposed to think of ourselves more highly than we ought to think, but to think soberly, of course, biblically, according to the measure of faith God has given us. And Philippians 2:3 says, let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than themselves. And I think that applies to both. Like Judy has to humble herself a little bit, and Nick has to prioritize others over self. And Judy has kind of taught him that because he's actually developed a real relationship and real care and affection, and then ultimately demonstrates love. Right? There's John 15, love. He's willing now. He's like, I'd die if it's dying for you. Like, he's not, he wasn't even sure about the cause, but I care about you. You're worth dying for. Right? That's John 15. Someone willing to lay down their life for their friends. That's the Christ-like mindset. Probably the closest we have to some desire to parallel as somebody who, like, I'll lay down my life for you. That seems like a worthy cause. Those are some of the angles.
But would you lay down your life for justice and truth? That's what Judy calls him up into. So he moved from selfish loner who, in the first movie, as a fox, everybody thinks I'm a fox. Fine, I'll give them what they want and I'll live for myself. Now he's got a friend, a true friend that he really loves.
Yeah.
And he can't look beyond, I only care about keeping you safe. But Judy's saying, no, you got to move beyond that toward caring about the good. And so, like, that's a real progression that especially children will move from. Is self-focused
and exposing truth and even revealing truth. Yeah. That's
so, like, for me, their relationship, I think it's kind of good marriage counseling. I think that emotional barf confession that they had at the end was kind of great. And, you know, they realize in this movie, they're trying to hold on to, like, Judy's trying to hold on to the image as the heroic bunny cop. And Nick is trying to hold on to Judy, but they are not living in the truth with one another. And you can't hold on to that. You can't hold on forever based on a lie. Wicked. You can't preserve the good things in this world based on a lie. They had to be honest with one another. And and this is good advice, sometimes easier said than done.
That's actually this movie rounds out K-pop Demon Hunters did the same thing.
Oh.
It's like the three protagonists versus two. Like, there's a moment where they all have to basically confess their failings and expose their flaws or patterns, as the movie would say, right? We have to confess these things to each other, and then they go out and have their victory, right? That's spoiler alert. The protagonists have a victory. There you go. But
Zootopia is not about them. It's not about erasing their differences, which is a problem with a lot of our culture. Is let's just ignore our differences. You got something you're ashamed of? Well, let's get rid of the shame. You know, those kind of things. Let's just say that the shame has been put on by others. But there's something real and mature about what this movie says is you're going to have differences, even things that you're ashamed of, weaknesses and strengths with one another. We need to talk about those. We need to look past past those, and be united in family, friendliness, and in this case, the search for justice as police officers. But we can't just be, in the words of Adam, or in the story of Adam and Eve, putting the fig leaves on in order to march forward. And that kind of leads into my second main point. Our third main point is just that the entire city is living under a lie, a suppressed lie. And so we see in this movie that wicked self-interest blinds people to the truth or stops them from doing what they should do.
Yeah.
Like, Zootopia doesn't know it because the snakes have been banished, but Zootopia is living under a lie that the Linksleys are the political and engineering heroes that they've built their society on, while the snakes are scapegoated as evil by their very nature. And this includes the police. They're under this lie too. They're just protecting their society. They're thinking a snake, we better get rid of them. They're evil, And even Nick, when he knocks out Gary the first time, is thinking he did something really good. It's a great little scene.
Yeah.
But they're all pressured to vilify the snakes who are actually their saviors. And they're all trying to preserve their wealth and status to justify these things. And they're willing to justify the destruction of all the other reptiles that they've scapegoated in that little marshy place. And so, so what you see in this movie, Judy and Nick have been fighting with Paubert, the well-meaning white sheep, I guess, so to speak, of the Linksley family. He's been helping them out. And Judy's like, sorry, last case there was kind of a twist. And Paubert, I know, fitting the exact pattern of the first movie, the seeming good guy stabs her with a snake venom. And really, Paubert's motives are the motives that destroy relationships. They keep us from being saved, and they killed Jesus. He wanted to belong. He wanted to keep his status and his wealth and be a part of his corrupt family. And that's the same thing that the elders and the chief priests, the Sanhedrin and the Pharisees wanted to do when they decided to kill Jesus. They cared
at the expense of the truth. Yeah.
At the expense of the truth. So it's like Paubert has seen the truth that the snakes really were the saviors of the city in the past. They really did build the foundation. Gary really is innocent, and that they are scapegoating these snakes. Similarly, the chief priests, Pharisees, and scribes, they had plenty of opportunities, and they'd seen Jesus do miracles. They'd seen him preach the same things as God. God is on the move in this movement of Jesus. But instead, they're so afraid of losing their status underneath the Romans and their status as the leaders, they're willing to kill Jesus to live based on this kind of lie. And so what this movie preaches is classic biblical evil is bad. You know, the temptation to lie, steal, and protect your wealth and status. It's a problem in Zootopia. It's a problem among the people who killed Jesus, and it's a problem today and in my own heart.
Yeah.
And so Judy's great line here: the world will never be a better place if no one is brave enough to do the right thing. That preaches against that temptation that all of us faces. And I was like, boy, that's a powerful Pobert. When he turned, it's like, no, the betrayal. And his whole family. But in the end, you see, okay, so all these characters are divided based on their relationship to the truth. So the Linksley family, they doubled down. They're going to stick with the scheme. And then also the horse mayor, Brian Windancer, Warburton was great in that. He says, you've been using me as a tool. I knew I was a tool to get into this position as mayor. But no, I'm not going to go along with this lie. And he fights back and he repents. What a hero. Yeah. With your Donald Trump hair, I don't know. I still don't know what to do with that. Surprisingly heroic for the guy that I thought was going to be painted as Donald Trump in the story. And then the police, the police are part of this system. And so they have to pursue Nick and Judy as criminals. But Nick and Judy have to go outside the system because the system is built upon a lie. What a classic police plot.
And yet it didn't vilify the police, right?
No.
Again, they split the difference really well. It's like, actually, they thought they were doing. It gives you some nuanced intentions where it's like, okay, then you have the police doing what are ultimately, they're going the wrong direction, but they believe they're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah,
and you don't think of them as awful. You think you want Nick and Judy to get away, but you don't want anything to happen to, like, you like a lot of these police officer guys. So
yeah,
Zebros.
The twins, the Zebros are great. That's exactly where I went. The Zebros, they don't have much screen time, but they're great.
Yeah.
And there's even one more parallel in the Jesus story, because again, Christmas. What in the Christmas story, the wise men follow a miraculous star in the sky, and they go to where they'd expect the king to be born. They go to Jerusalem. King Herod is sitting on the throne, and they say, "Where's the king of the Jews been born?" You're like, "You guys should all be stoked." And it says that King Herod and the whole city was scandalized, was scared. And then they make this plot. Okay, you go figure out where the king of Jews was born, and we're going to kill all those children. Instead of following the truth that God was on the move in Israel 2,000 years ago, they decided to be like Pobert and say, let's destroy God's plan because I would rather have my throne. And so again, that's why I think this is a Christmas movie, because of Isaiah 11 and Matthew 2 and King Herod. No, but it's a good little parable for what happens in all of us. I mean, every person who becomes a Christian is like Pobert at one point. I could keep going the way I want to go, or I could come to the truth, and I might lose some wealth and status. I might lose some pleasures that I like, but I will be helping the truth that these snakes were actually the heroes of the story. Funny enough, snakes is not a good biblical image.
Mm-hmm. Well, unless it's a snake lifted up on a pole.
Unless it's a snake in that one instance. Jesus, like the snake lifted up on the pole, you will. I mean, that's the context for John 3:16. You will, if you believe in him, you will not perish but have eternal life. And in this movie, it's like, if you can look at this snake and look at your own crimes as a city, you might be able to see the dream of Gary's grandmother, that everybody was supposed to work together. And even Judy needed to learn that. She needed to learn that she's not the Christ, she needs to work along with her friends. And so don't be like the chief priests and the Pharisees who decide to kill Jesus. Don't be like Pobert, who gives in. Be a little bit like Judy and Nick together, who decided to do the right thing, even though they lost their status as police officers in order to do the right thing. So that's after uncovering that little needle in the haystack of a thought in Zootopia 2, that really moved it up a notch for me to see. Boy, it's a really good exploration for the way in which we will hold on to prejudices in order to protect ourselves, even when the truth is staring at us in the face. And that's the same kind of lie that killed Jesus when he came to his own.
Yeah. Well, the level setting that it does too. I grew up in the generation I got to see the turn as you said. I'm thinking about like the truth of our city or the truth of our country with different things. Like I grew up as a little kid, Christopher Columbus was a hero. But I was part of a generation where I think I was still in school when the narrative started to change. Definitely by college. It was like, oh, wait, no, Christopher Columbus is a villain. And it's like, all right, so, but what was he? I just recently watched I was watching a new documentary piece that was actually talking about, okay, wait a minute. At the time, he's accused of all sorts of things now. And at the time, slavery is almost a constant throughout the entire world. He came here to what he thought was India.
Well, okay, so there's something kind of interesting. George Carlin used to argue, believe it or not, the comedian George Carlin, he used to argue that Columbus wasn't calling them Indians because of India, but he said that they got the name from a gente in Dios, a people in God. That Indian is actually a way of attributing to them status as image bearers of God. Now, I haven't had the time to track down. Is that true? Have I been lied to this whole time to think that so it's like,
I'm not sure, but I'll throw this one at you too. So he gets accused of killing or enslaving a bunch of natives. What I was just hearing the other day was like, well, guess what? He actually made good friends with the tribe that was here. Then some of their people were both killed by a neighboring tribe called the Canibs, from where we get the term cannibals, which tells you what they were doing. And so he actually teamed up he and this other native tribe worked together to go, yes, they did take out that tribe, because they were cannibals and they didn't know anything better to do with them in that time of civilization. Yes, that tribe was enslaved. Yeah. Because they were killing and eating both indigenous and foreign peoples. So it's like, it's like, wait a minute, what? So again, like,
what am I supposed to believe about this guy? Like, I don't want to be just so blindly patriotic. My country has always done the right thing, and we're clearly the most righteous people. But there has been a trend that you are
the last
a good
quarter
person.
Century, he was sort of made into a snake. It's like, okay, wait. Is he Gary the Snake, or is he Gary the Snake? Is he the Snake, or is he Gary the Snake? Right? That there's a little more nuance that we have to take on things like that. But as Christians, we know this, right? We have the classic example in the man after God's own heart.
Yeah.
Right? We have, like, that's why Nick's compromised, Judy's compromised. Not all the snakes are perfect. I'm sure if we got into another Zootopia, not all reptiles are wonderful, right? That's this movie is getting at the basic idea that there's flawed, that the Linksleys can be corrupt. Like, everybody can be corrupt, just like King David can slay Goliath and then murder and commit adultery, right? Yeah. We are a flawed people who desperately need a savior, and no one should be like that. Well, with rare exceptions, which we could get, which is a longer debate. Like, you would start talking Hitler and Stalin and things, but like, we recognize all people are flawed to some degree, and I think, like, if we all say we could be Adam, then we have to all say, like, apart from the grace of Christ, I could be Adolf.
And that's the beginning of the path that Jesus walks us down in order to try to emerge Zootopia between us.
Yeah. That's the truth. That's the truth that the Bible surfaces. Like, oh, no, wait, who am I? Where does the serpent play into our story, into the real story?
Yeah.
Who am I? It's like that. No, outing that truth is something Christians have to always be about, because every generation's I think they're going to write that mythology differently. Even some professing Christians, even in our country, right? So we have to keep making sure the true gospel is preached and the true gospel is God. We all have to be a little Judy and Nick and work with Gary.
Yeah, I was explaining to my 5-year-old today, like, detectives. And I was like, so, like, a lot of people in Zootopia were lying about the history of their city, and detectives find clues to the truth. And he's like, yeah, like tracks about who was there. And I was like, yeah, they find clues to find the truth, and that's what we want to be. The good guys are the ones who pursue the truth for the sake of righteousness. And and Judy Hopps is up there in terms of heroes, of a tiny, David and Goliath, a tiny bunny who is about justice and truth and kindness and wants to preserve the Utopia, the Zootopia.
Yeah.
In truth, not built on a lie. Cough wicked. I'm sorry if I spoiled that movie for you guys. Just, it still has a bad taste in my mouth, even though good movie, really worth seeing.
No, the David parallel is fun. He's right. He's the smallest, but he's zealous for righteousness, and yet fallible. So we almost do have a David-like character in Judy here with the story.
Even the Isaiah 11 passage when I was studying it says it's the stump of Jesse, which is funny because you go, why not the stump of David? Because that's who you're really thinking of when you see this prophecy. And it seems to be, let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to the beginning and like, what if there was a David, but a David who did it better, even better than David? And that's what Jesus is in Scripture, right? He goes down to Egypt. He goes through the waters. He survives temptation in the desert. He leads us people. Like, that's what we celebrate as Christians, and that's what we follow. I'm getting pumped for Christmas.
So Jesus is the better Judy. There we go.
Jesus is the better Judy. He brings the better Zootopia.
That's
he
right.
invites us into truth. He helps us through our personal conflicts, and he's the one we look to instead of our own ideals in order to bring on the utopia on earth as it is in heaven.
Oh, well, we may have exhausted our time. Do we even need to do a lightning round, or if we comprehensively knock this out of the park?
Yeah.
I'm sure, like they say, if there's 500,000 animals, what was that? What was that number?
50,000 animals? I'm going to go back.
50,000 animals. There's obviously way more we could have talked about, way more jokes we could have talked about, probably some other nuances of characters or themes that we could have talked about. So hopefully...
Gary returning his whole family from exile. Sorry, we're not going to go down that road.
So we need you to fill in the gaps, those who are paying attention, listening to the episode, whether it's popcorn thoughts or whether it's some deep theology thoughts. We'd love to hear what you guys think. So share that in the comments section, whether you're watching on YouTube or keeping up with it on social media, whatever it is. Make sure to like, subscribe, add your thoughts. That's where we want to keep the conversation going. But we will get the credits rolling on this episode. And hopefully this comes right out around Christmas time. So for the sake of its first published, Merry Christmas. But until next time, keep engaging movies and media from a godly perspective. And remember, you are not a mindless consumer.
Now I'm kind of regretting not doing a whole point about Gary as the suffering servant who brings his exiled family back into the light.
Thanks for watching this episode of Popcorn Theology. For more content, subscribe on YouTube. Follow and interact on social media to help broaden the conversation. Check out our archive of past episodes at popcorntheology.com or wherever you listen to podcasts, and consider becoming a patron saint by supporting us on Patreon, which lets you interact, influence, and enjoy exclusive bonus content.